Up next, we have Giles Ward. Giles is here with us from Hash Health. He spent most of the last 20 years working in healthcare. He started at WebMD as a clearinghouse healthcare M&A. Most of the last 10 years, he spent developing and operating dialysis centers. And after some time off last year, he finally jumped into the deep end of healthcare IT to form what is today Hash Health. So please join me in welcoming Giles Ward.
No worries. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so I hold the coveted space between you and lunch. So, okay, here we go. So, as I was pulling slides, I sort of saw this one and laughed because I'm not going to try and answer this question in this room. But in most 20-minute presentations to healthcare clients, we spend the first 30 minutes on this slide. So, as we move forwards, I think I'm going to talk to my team about they'd somehow convinced me that I should do all the healthcare conferences and they'd take care of the blockchain conferences. But we're going to change that because this has been a lot of fun. So, well done to you guys for putting this on. So, blockchain and healthcare. The numbers are staggering, like 3.3 trillion in healthcare costs last year, and you can see what that does. 4.5 by 2019, almost 5 trillion by 2020. So, healthcare is behind. You sort of saw the R3 slide yesterday, and this sort of started in 2015, 2016, 2017. Like healthcare is a good, on the same scale, is a good 2 years behind. Until recently, the best informed provider side CEO conversation I'd had was with about blockchain was a hospital CEO who had quickly figured out how to sign up for a Bitcoin account so he could pay the ransom to unlock his accounting data. So he was not a great sales candidate, but he was definitely better informed than a lot of the folks that we've been talking to. So we'll hit him up again in about 6 months, see if he's recovered. So I'll jump. This is this year in February we went to HIMSS. It's a massive conference. Like the map doesn't do it justice. It took 25 minutes to walk from one end of this building to the other. Like, it's something like 40,000 people, and every booth had some remarkable idea and some improvement on what healthcare and healthcare IT could do to sort of change the system. But if you looked at it, and we walked through these booths, it was, this app will improve nurse call response time by 10%, or we can change the way you schedule patient transport or fill empty appointments. And you think like they're all really cool solutions and they're really small people, really smart people working on them. But when you think back to that $5 trillion number, like a 10% improvement on nurse call response time or becoming the Uber of healthcare or transport, like it's nibbling around the edges. We're just not getting there. And so gratefully, someone familiar to a lot in this room, Ginny Ramdi, was the keynote speaker on Monday morning, and she spent the first 40 minutes of her speech talking about Watson and what IBM was doing, and then charged the audience with what they should do as they leave the room. And one of the things she said was, you guys need to go find out about blockchain. And that sort of launched a remarkable couple of days for us because we had the good luck but dumb luck of being the only booth that showed up if you typed the word blockchain into the booth directory. So our friends from Hyperledger were there. There was a great rock stars of blockchain event, Ted Tanner and Jem and the CIO of Kaiser and IBM and Xerox. Like, there were some amazing names talking about blockchain. But if you search the app, we were the only source. So we had 3 solid days. There were 4 of us at the booth, and we were lined 3, 4 deep of people. And they said, "What is blockchain?" Or, "I kind of get blockchain. I see it in financial services. What's it doing in healthcare? Like, where does it fall?" Or last, people came in and said, "Okay, I get it. I get it in healthcare. If you can convince my boss the thing I've been talking about for the last 60 days nonstop is for real and that I'm not crazy, like, we can do something here." And so those have really turned into some interesting meetings. So, when you look at the market, what Ted was saying yesterday was exactly right. Healthcare is siloed. Healthcare is afraid of its own shadow, creating just incredible numbers of transactions and inefficient, just administrative costs and burdens. If you want to scare someone in healthcare, use the word distributed or shared, and just see how quiet the room gets. But look at that, 4 billion prescriptions written annually. A lot of them are still on paper. Some of them are going digitally to your pharmacy. Some of them are called in. But just the volume there is unbelievable. So what's our path forwards? You're not going to hit healthcare over the head with blockchain. We got to draw them in. So where we stand is yeah, someone said yesterday, skeptical entities need a framework. And I think our motto has been, you've got to give the smart people that are in the space the framework to think about the problems they face every day, the problems that they know so much better and so much more intimately than you ever could walking in there as a stranger, however much time you've spent in healthcare. Like, they know what they're facing. If you can come in and present the possibility of blockchain, just the new way of thinking about blockchain, like, you really start to open up, you open up the conversation, and you can feel in a room as people start to get it. It's the IT guy sort of runs out of the room and comes back with 2 other guys, and then they're sort of talking quietly at the side. And I think it's giving an industry a path forwards. Like, I use Lego as an example. If you show someone this giant Lego Death Star, it's this big and it's got 10,000 pieces, people are like, whoa, I don't know, I could never do that. But you give them the little motorcycle with 10 pieces that's at the checkout counter, and they can put it together, and now suddenly they can see a link between, okay, there's a big gap between here and there, but I can see, based on this, that there's a path to that. And so it's showing them that framework, and then allowing them to think of ways that the blockchain could apply to the world that they live in. So I think something that was interesting yesterday, if you describe the blockchain as an index and not as a shared ledger or distributed ledger, it gets wheels turning pretty quickly, and people start to think, okay, I can get behind an index. Like, if you think about some of the data that's in healthcare, a PACS image file, a single PACS image file could be bigger than the entire Bitcoin database. Like, you're not going to store that on a blockchain, but you could reference that image was taken, or where it was done, or that even across provider systems, you could say, this patient's new to you, but he had an MRI last week. So in small towns, those hospitals may not work together, but those 2 physicians know each other, and they probably play golf together on the weekends. So there's a path to connect those things if there's just a marker that says, this piece of data exists here. And obviously on the blockchain, you can store who put it there, who has access to it, who else could have access to it, and when it was placed. So that brings us to Hashed Health. So we are a healthcare company. All of us come out of healthcare. Some have run hospitals. John Bass is our CEO. He came out of several HIT startups that were all bringing companies that didn't really want to work together. He worked on some big supply chain, and his last was an episodic surgical tracking system that sort of took a patient pre-op to all the way through the recovery cycle and just gave all parties visibility into that. And then he started looking at it and said, this is a blockchain solution. These parties, their systems don't talk, they don't talk, but they're all responsible. And as we get into bundled payment and bundled shared cost responsibility models in healthcare, it's going to become more and more important that the surgeon can see that the physical therapist is actually doing what they're supposed to and that the patient's actually showing up. So we are a consortium, but I'd say not in the traditional sense. We're two parts. We're a place to come in for healthcare companies to come in and learn about blockchain in their own vocabulary and at their own pace. We're sort of bringing the different parts of the company along. We've got a sort of a C-level and a business, like blockchain 101, and we've got a technical 101, and kind of get those two guys talking. But it's, if we can get companies to learn and understand the real value of our consortium is bringing it to the next level where we can help those companies that know the problems that they're facing sort of focus on or figure out what a good proof of concept or good first project would be and who else needs to be a part of that network. So we help them think it through, learn about the technology, and what to do next. So we're sitting at the business layer, the application layer. We have no thoughts of building a blockchain. Our first demo we built on Fabric. We're doing some work on Ethereum, and we've got some supply chain stuff on the BitSE network. So we're sort of committed to being chain agnostic and drawing each of those customers and those healthcare participants that are at the table around that problem into the decision process about why are we looking at this suite of blockchains? Like, what does each do well, and what problem are we trying to solve? So it sort of brings them into the discussion and the sort of buy-in as we move forward is considerable. So if we look, so we focus on two things. So and you can't separate them. So product and network. Like, product on its own is not going anywhere. So I think in early 2016, late 2015, a number of healthcare companies partnered with some blockchains and did some really interesting, expensive proof of concept work, but they did it inside their four walls. And I would say it was like they created two fax machines in a room, and they sort of watched, and we're like, that's really cool. You proved it worked, but we know it works. Like, Bitcoin has proved this works. Like, you don't need to spend money to recreate that. So let's not, you've got to have a good product. It's got to be something that's solving a known problem, and then you've got to build the network around it. So most of our conversations are inbound. It's people that leave conferences that say, I've heard enough about Bitcoin to know I'm interested. What do I do tomorrow? And so we'll sort of walk them through our learning suite, and then once we focus on a problem, we'll see what other parts of that network, who else is involved in that problem. And so we'll convene that group so that often in a way a company can't do on their own. Like, if they got along well, they probably wouldn't need a blockchain solution. Often it arises out of contract disputes or pricing arguments or things that the blockchain and defining those processes on a not your database, not your version, just something that sits between you that you can both share and trust. So. So this is a little bit about what I said. We walk people through this process. So we're pretty careful not to let the business guys get ahead of the IT guys, or the IT guys get ahead of the business guys. A part of what we do is we require that they're decision makers at the table, that they're people that have their hands on the problem at the table, and that they bring some part of their in-house counsel, their legal team in. And so we put the in-house guys of the legal team through a CLE program. We make the IT guys go through a code camp, not so that they become competent blockchain programmers, but so that they know the language that's being spoken as they interface with the developers as we build these solutions out. So we're pretty clear about the commitment we're asking for. Like we are, and often that's for their own good. We know we're a small company based in Nashville, and like a lot of these Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, like, you know, we're protecting them from anything that we can't do in the future. Like the vendor lock-in is only a problem if they don't participate in the process the way we built it out. So as we move, our goal is to get these companies and those partners in the problem into working groups. And then Hashed Health will provide the support around that. So one, to convene the network. Two, a lot of these guys are like, well, who do I call if it breaks? Where do I get my questions answered? And so we'll provide that as they need it. You know, support node validation. I think there are a number of services that can go along with that. And then on the regulatory side, like we're one of the founding members of the Hyperledger healthcare group. We've joined the Digital Chamber. I think we either have or are in the process of joining the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. A lot of these healthcare companies, they don't want to be at that table, but they want to know that their interests are being represented. They want to know that if they go down this path, that they're not going to hit a wall, that someone in Washington is going to say no, or that we're not going to be able to evolve the sort of HIPAA standards fast enough to allow this, these projects to go forward. So it's representation, and then the opportunity for them to participate or be pulled in as they want to or as we need them. So I think some of the things we're offering to these guys is just it's a low barrier to entry. Like you could spend a lot of money and do this on your own. We get that, but we're offering you know, the opportunity to split the cost of that. A lot of these companies are coming in with some pretty cool IP, like they know what they're trying to solve. They just don't know the first step, or they don't know how to get those right players at the table. So we're offering very attractive IP terms to them. We're offering commercialization opportunities on the back end. So whatever they put in, there's an opportunity to get that out. And so that is, if you talk to a pharma company, they want your definition of IP before they want your business card. Like it's a pretty tight circle. And on the provider side, they're often saying, look, we've got a problem. We need a problem solved. We need a solution. We don't really care what happens on the end, but it gives both of those players an opportunity to play in the space. So I'm getting tight on time, so a lot of what we're doing in these groups is, you know, we're picking a platform. We're making sure the stakeholders are in agreement for how this is built and how this is going to go forwards. And then we've got some interesting governance agreements about how those companies and Hashed Health will interact in the future, especially if the problem we solve has commercial applications outside the intended first use case. So often in some brainstorming sessions, we'll walk companies through possible use cases just to kind of get their wheels turning. But you know, pretty quickly, and especially in some of these bigger companies, they know where their pain points are. And you know, early on, we spend a lot of time saying, nope, that's probably better solved by a blockchain, or is this solution really any better than the one you have in place? Like, do we need to go down this road? And so a lot of discussion, but as they sort of engage, they go deep, and it's pretty cool to see how companies sort of latch hold of the idea, and just I think as many of you have done in this room, just once you sort of grasp the idea of blockchain, like that next couple of months is a blur as you're trying to figure out more. So we built a simple use case on Fabric. Provider data management, it's a problem that every big payer faces, like Cigna, Humana, Blue Cross. Everybody's got a directory of people in their network. It's what they're selling. When you buy a plan, you're buying access to a network, and if that directory is not accurate, they're in the eyes of CMS and some of the state regulatory bodies, that they're misrepresenting what they're selling. So at any given time, up to 20% of the data in a provider directory is inaccurate. So, think about that on Google Maps. If 1 in 5 addresses you put in took you to the wrong place, we would not use it very well. So it's non-political. All of the payers are sort of in agreement that this is a problem, and they're all doing the same work in different silos. So we're just, there's a lot of interest in it, and there's a lot of willingness to sort of offload that. So, if someone updates their address at Blue Cross, there's no reason that address does not update in the Humana system. It's not a competitive advantage to either one of those systems, because you're not changing health plans based on where you got that info. So I'll say, what does success look like? A lot of the healthcare companies ask this, and I use an example of if I left here today and the guys back in Nashville said, how'd it go? And I spent all my time talking about how cool Windows 10 was because I was able to run PowerPoint in order to put a presentation up. They'd look at me like I was nuts. Like, nobody cares what it's built on. Like, success is a 2-page article in Wired or Forbes with a footnote at the bottom that says, oh, by the way, it was built on a blockchain. And I think right now we're leading with blockchain, and quite quickly I think these solutions are going to be big enough, and the promise is big enough that the solution will become the story and the blockchain will become the footnote, and I think that's where we're headed. So I'll finish up on last year we sort of launched out of a conference in Nashville, Distributed Health. That was 600 people. 20% of them came from overseas in a town that didn't have an international flight. This year we've moved it from 1 day to 2 day. We're expecting about 1,200 people, and we've added a 3rd day, which is a hashed health global initiative around patient records. So we've got some pretty big announcements and names that are coming to that. So anyone interested in healthcare and blockchain, we'd love to be your door between those two markets. So thank you, and thanks to Rice and you guys for putting this on. So.
So we're going to break for lunch, but I do want to point out that we have breakout sessions going on for the next 30 minutes. So for the speakers you just saw, we'll have breakout rooms in 214, 216, 312, and 314. Afterwards, we're starting at 1 p.m., again back in this room, but there's also an oil and gas breakout session in room 316 that I think Tyler is leading. That starts at 1 as well. So nice long break for lunch, and I hope you check out those breakout sessions as well. Thank you.